Well, welcome to March and Women's History Month. I want to thank the singers for that piece from Anne Reed. I had the privilege of seeing her sing it live back in 2004 at a Girl Scout National Conference, and it was really fun. If I could have a dialogue with Anne Reed right now, though, I would thank her for this song, thank her for the reminder that our heroes are those who make the way easier for the next person, and the reminder that we are all whole with our imperfections at all. And then I would say, kindly, that she left out a group of women. She left out trans women who deserve the same kind of appreciation for their courage. People like Marsha P. Johnson, am I saying? Suddenly that sounds wrong, is that right? Marsha P. Johnson? Yeah, and Sylvia Rivera. Marsha and Sylvia and the women named in this song are notable for many reasons, but for many of the women there, just being a woman, just being themselves, or being someone who dared to speak up, or someone who dared to be outstanding in their field, required a great deal of courage in our oppressive patriarchal society. If you add having an identity besides being a woman that is otherwise marginalized, like being a person of color or a trans person or both, the courage that these women have shown throughout time astounds me. I don't know if there's ever been a time in history when courage has not been required, but these days, we're called to muster our courage so that we can be firm in our convictions and hold the line for our values. There's a whole lot of terrible happening right now. People's lives are in danger, and it is a frightening time. For some of us in this country who hold privilege in terms of gender or race or wealth, it might be the first time that potential government actions have threatened our own freedoms. And so we don't have a lot of practice in being brave in the same way that people who don't hold that privilege have. Each of us, no matter what privileges we hold or don't hold, can draw courage from the many, many movements for justice and the people within them who've gone before us, making the world a better place and becoming our heroes. For myself, I know that I am often feeling the need to call up my courage as the leader of a progressive organization in this time. I consider my public words and actions carefully, but I'm not going to comply in advance. I'm not going to stop wearing my Progress Pride stole, even though I didn't wear it today, or my Pride button or my Black Lives Matter button. And I'm not going to stop speaking out about the unjust policies of this administration and the recklessness that it is showing and that it encourages. And I'm sure that there will eventually be opportunities for me to show up in my collar as a moral force. I would be lying to say that I do this without a bit of fear. But this is a time when we must gather our courage and do the thing we think we cannot do, as Eleanor Roosevelt said. And so how do we gather our courage? For me, one way is to look at history. I'm inspired by those women in that slideshow who were very courageous and those who were left out. I'm inspired by the civil rights movement, the movement for women's suffrage, the movement for labor laws, so many movements where people spoke up, stood up, and said the right thing. For me, another way I can grow my courage is also by consulting with my colleagues who are in a similar situation. I do this informally. I'm in colleague groups on Facebook, and we share their ideas for worship or social justice, or just, how do you do this thing? And I do it formally in monthly colleague gatherings on Zoom, and I have 2 of those, and 1 weekly Zoom gathering. In all these groups, my colleagues share resources and we support one another in brainstorming. We commiserate when we have difficult times, and we encourage one another when we need it. And sometimes we even offer a gentle correction when one of us might be helped by a reminder to slow down, think again, maybe that's not a great idea. That support and encouragement, do you hear the word courage in there? Encouragement is crucial to my ministry with you and in the world. And it's my hope that you all also have a place within this congregation or within this faith where you might receive the same kind of support and encouragement so you can do your ministry in this world, which is to spread the good news of our faith, that all people are loved. At last year's auction, I offered 2 sermons as auction items, and the winners of those items were invited to choose a hymn, and I would create a service around it. I'm cheating a little bit today, but I'm also going to use a hymn that was recommended by an auction winner. It was Joanne Littell, and she originally chose a hymn that was about building bridges across our differences. And I was working with that, and she came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, nope, that one's not working for me anymore. She said, how about number 1012, which is When I Am Frightened? So I did some research for today's sermon, and I learned something that made me laugh, that the composer intended this hymn to reflect how adults can teach children by their example. And why it made me laugh is because often I don't get the lyrics of pop music or things, and so I assumed this was about us as adults helping one another when we are frightened. But I think that's also a valid reading of the hymn. Let me see. So we're going to